NXT starts off with Trick Williams and Ethan Page having her contract signing. Ava's in the ring. Starts off with Ethan Page talking to Trick, and he ends up saying that he is not Pete Dunne and that he is Trick Williams' kryptonite due to him being able to beat Trick Williams for the NXT Championship. Trick Williams basically ends up saying that Ethan Page didn't deserve the NXT Championship and that he basically stole his championship from him. Ethan Page gets very frustrated. He gets all in Trick Williams' face, and he ends up basically saying that he earned the championship and that the era of all ego is going to continue. And then he ends up saying that he's going to put an end to Trick Williams on NXT when they move to CW. That's when they have the match October 1st. Then he ends up attacking Trick Williams and ends up hitting a razor's edge onto Trick Williams onto announce table. You know how it goes when they have these contract signings. Good opening segment, a good way to start off NXT. I'm very excited for the match. Unfortunately, Ethan Page is my favorite champion in all of wrestling, but it's unfortunate that he's going to lose when they move over to the CW network. It's unfortunate because I have loving his reign, but I just don't see a world where he actually wins. But bro, he's been an amazing champion. I have loved everything he is doing. This was great. This is a great way to start out the show. Next, we end up getting a quick little segment with Tony D'Angelo and Hammerstone. Tony D'Angelo paid Hammerstone to take care of the Opal Femi problem, but he didn't. So Tony D'Angelo addressed him, ends up saying that he needs to have another match with Opal Femi, but Hammerstone is not liking the idea. He's like, look, I'm not going to face him, bro. He's too good. Tony D'Angelo takes offense to it. He's like, bro, I'm the Don. You got to, you basically just need to do what I say and that I already paid you, so you need to finish the job. Hammerstone ends up saying that if you're the Don, if you're, the big boss, how about you take care of him? Tony D'Angelo, of course, gets a little frustrated and he ends up saying that he's going to take care of Hammerstone, which led to a match later in the show. Next, we end up getting Lyra Valkyria, Tatum Paxley. They end up having a match between Wendy Choo and Rosemary, continuing this little feud, have Tatum Paxley get her revenge. I'm not going to speak too much on the match. This was a decent match overall. Lyra and Tatum ends up picking up the victory, having that little, I don't know if you call it nostalgia pop, because it wasn't that long ago when they was just, being, best friends and all, but this was a good little moment, give the crowd, to cherish something from the past, even though it hasn't been that long ago. I enjoyed it for what it was, because I love the Tatum Paxley and Lyra Valkyria storyline, their friendship. I love that story. It's my favorite thing in all of NXT since I've been watching it. So I enjoyed it for what it was. Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley picking the victory. I don't know what's next for them because I don't know how you continue this story. And I don't know if Lyra just stays back on Raw because she is getting used on Raw again. So I don't know if she just stays on Raw and this is the final time we see her on NXT. I don't know. But overall, I enjoyed it. Now we end up moving over to Tony D'Angelo and Hammerstone. They're fighting it out. They're going back and forth. But in the middle of the match, Hammerstone ends up doing a belly-to-belly suplex, over-the-top belly-to-belly suplex onto Tony D'Angelo. And Tony D'Angelo ends up crawling out of the ring. Then he's about to get count out. And he's just walking around the ring. He walked towards, the family with Channing, Adriana, and Luke Crucifino. And he's just letting the ref count to 10. And he lets the ref count to 10. And he just walks out. He got himself disqualified, got himself count out, and he just walks out. And, the family's confused. Everyone's confused. Everyone's concerned. Like, why did he walk out? Later in the show, he ended up, the family ends up, confronting him. And he ends up admitting that he's afraid. He's afraid that he can't get the job done. He says that he's supposed to be the leader. He's supposed to be the protector. And he can't do that. He feels like that he's not ready to face Opal Femi again, that he's afraid. This was a really good segment. I really love what they did here. I like that they are showing a more emotional side to the family, to Tony D'Angelo, because typically with Tony D'Angelo and the family, they typically have more of a, I wouldn't say cocky attitude, but typically a very confident, very, very rare when they're very stressed out or emotional. So I do like the side. Later in the show, Adrian Rizzo ends up cheering up Tony D'Angelo, ends up giving him basically a motivational speech, telling him that, look, even if you lose, we're still a family. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. It just matters that you tried and basically put in the work, and that they basically believed in him. So Tony D'Angelo will get back into the picture to fight Opal Femi eventually. So I love what they did here. This was overall solid. Now, we know he's going to lose again. I'm just curious, what's the bigger story here? Because if he does lose again, is this potentially trying to turn them heel? I'm not saying they will turn heel because I don't think they need to, but I'm just saying, is this a bigger plot or is this just something for the short term? I don't know. But overall, I enjoy what they did here. This was an overall solid way to give Tony D'Angelo and the family a little bit more character development, in my opinion. Now we end up getting Zach Zach Wentz. He ends up cutting a promo. And he ends up mentioning why they couldn't face Nathan Axiom last week for the tag team titles, because originally it was supposed to be the Rascals, but they ended up getting replaced by the Street Profits. He ends up showing footage of why they couldn't, face Nathan Axiom, and his footage of Wesley attacking Trey in the parking lot, basically injuring him. So he's preventing them to be able to become NXT Tag Champs, which I predict. I thought he was going to do it in a match, but he ends up doing it outside of a match, which I actually do like. It was crazy too. He ends up attacking him while he was entering his car, and so it was a really good segment. This is basically to build up their street fight that's going to happen on October 1st when they move over to CW. This was a decent promo overall. Not going to speak too much on it. I'm already excited for it. Can't wait. The first match was an absolute banger. Make it a street fight. It's just going to make it even more fun and entertaining. Now, this is also a way to write off Trey off TV for a while as well. So I'm assuming Trey will come back by the time they make their debut on CW on October 1st. So I'm assuming Trey will have some involvement in that match as well. So I'm already hyped for the match and I can't wait for it. Now we end up getting a quick match between Ashanti Adonis and Eddie Thorpe. I'm not going to speak too much on this match. I just love Ashanti Adonis' character, but Ashanti Adonis was finna pick up the victory, but Eddie Thorpe, but he ended up showboating, being a little too arrogant and cocky. He was showboating in front of a woman in the crowd, which allowed Eddie Thorpe to pick up the victory. Don't know the long-term goal between Ashanti Adonis, but I'm loving his character. I love his character of just being this wannabe player, horny dude who just wants to holla at every girl. I love his gimmick. And I love his gimmick is not meant to be taken seriously, which is why I love it. Ashanti Adonis is doing some great character work in NXT. Now we end up getting Thea Hill and Riley Osborne. They end up making a response to, they have their little vignette, making a response to Ridge Holland. This was overall okay. Riley Osborne needs a lot of work. Now, to be fair, Thea Hill and Riley are both green, but man, in this vignette segment, it was so obvious that Riley Osborne is super green. Like, oh my God. His acting was terrible. He was trying to come off very serious and angry, but it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. It was not working at all. They end up basically saying that they can't believe Rich did, attack them. Now, they were lying because they ended up both saying that they both end up lying, ends up saying that they came in with open arms for Ridge Holland, that they accepted him from day one, which is just not true. I don't know where they got that from, but that's not true. Typically, that's more of a heel thing to lie because they did not accept him from day one. Riley and Duke were not accepting of him, but they eventually did accept him. Basically, they end up saying that, of course, they're going to get payback, and Riley and Ridge are going to have a match next week. So, to build up that match. Now we end up getting CM Punk, the main thing on the show. CM Punk ends up making his debut on NXT. He ends up cutting a promo. He ends up rambling for a bit. Then he was about to make a special announcement, but then Roxanne Perez ends up coming out, which I was very surprised. I'm like, Roxanne Perez of all people? But it makes sense because Roxanne Perez is a very huge fan of CM Punk, huge fan of his wife as well. Her favorite wrestler. That's probably her favorite wrestler because she got a lot of character traits from AJ Lee. But she ends up praising CM Punk, ends up saying that she was, her favorite wrestler when she was a child. Basically giving all this praise to CM Punk, but he ends up saying that she always preferred his wife. Then she ends up rambling a bit. She ends up talking about Julia. She kept mentioning Julia in the promo. Then she ends up saying that in these recent few months that she finally realized that she should have been a CM Punk fan. This was overall decent promo. Now, I didn't take it seriously, mainly because we all know that she's a real CM Punk fan, and she was cheesing the entire promo. Even before she started talking, she was smiling like she could barely hold it in. So this was overall a decent segment. It did drag on a bit, in my opinion, but overall solid segment. But then CM Punk gets on the microphone, and he ends up basically mentioning that he understands Roxanne Perez. He's not upset because at one point he was in her situation as well, being this overconfident, cocky, arrogant champion. So he understands. Then he ends up mentioning Julia's name because she kept mentioning Julia's name. Julia then comes out and she ends up saying that she basically has 2 weeks until she's not NXT champion. Leaves the ring. Roxanne Perez tries to attack Julia, but CM Punk stops her, and that's the end of the segment there. Overall, okay segment, not gonna speak too much. This was just the build up towards the main event to build up the real special announcement towards the end of the show. So that was for what this was, to kind of tease us a bit. But overall, decent segment, not too much. I enjoyed it for what it was though. Now we end up getting Javon Evans, Cedric Alexander versus Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. This is of course to play onto the story of last week where Javon Evans faced Charlie for the Heritage Cup, but Charlie ended up winning via interference of Tavion Heights. Towards the end of the match, Kalani Jordan ends up attacking Ren Sinclair, distracting Miles Bourne, which allowed Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander to pick up the victory. The reason why Kalani ended up attacking Ren Sinclair, because earlier in the show, Ren Sinclair asked for Charlie Dempsey ended up telling Ren Sinclair that she needs to make a name for herself. So Ren Sinclair tried to make a name for herself, and the way she did it was by slapping Kalani Jordan in order for Kalani Jordan to, I guess, give her a title shot. Ren Sinclair character is very funny, and it's crazy how her gimmick is working because she's playing this very super perky. I can't even explain what her character is, but it's working for me. It's working for me, and she is the best part of No Quarter Catch Crew. But later after the match, earlier in the show, Javon Evans tried to ask Reva for a match when they move over to CW on October 8th, if I'm not mistaken, October 8th, because they have two shows that they're building up, October 1st and October 8th, because it's going to be at St. Louis, and Javon Evans is from St. Louis. And Ava ends up answering the call, and after the match, he finds out that he will be facing Randy Orton on October 8th, which is crazy. I didn't think Randy Orton was going to be having a match. I knew Randy Orton was going to be there, but I didn't think it was possible for him to have a match. I thought he was going to do what CM Punk did. I thought he was going to cut a promo and then maybe be a general manager for a day like Cody Rhodes was. I thought it would be something like that. But the fact that they're actually going to have Randy Russell is crazy. And that match, I'm not going to say it should be a banger because I like Javon Evans. It's more so Randy. And I know that's a hot take, but Randy Orton to me, he's a decent wrestler. I don't think he's great or amazing like some people say. I think he's a decent wrestler. So we'll see how that match plays out, especially at this current age. Now, we end up getting a quick Brooks Jensen, Shawn Spears segment. Not going to speak too much on it. Basically, Brooks Jensen finally ends up, having Shawn Spears on his side. He's finally, agreeing to have Shawn Spears. He finally believes him and that he's going to stick with Shawn Spears. He ended up having a match with Dion, which he, of course, ends up beating. Not going to speak too much on it. So it looks like Shawn Spears and Brooks Jensen are finally a duo. They're finally sticking to it. So we'll see how that plays out. Now we get Jacy Jayne versus Lola Vice. And this was stupid. This is my main complaint of the show. Lola Vice ends up picking up the victory. The reason why I don't like this is because, for one, I still don't think Lola Vice should be a babyface, but they did the same thing they did last week. They lose a match, but then they attack the babyface after the match. And also, Fallon Henley interfered in the match as well, but they interfered and still lost. Look, and then after the match, Jada Parker ends up coming in for the save and ends up, saving Lola Vice. Lola Vice and Jada Parker basically get into the argument. Look, I get what they're doing here, but I just don't. Look, I'm going to give it time, but I don't like Jada Parker and Lola Vice as baby faces. I just don't think I don't think they have the right character and gimmick for them to be baby faces right now, in my opinion. Also, Fatal Influence needs to change. They're getting the PFC treatment where they're losing matches that they probably should win. That they're losing. Why have them lose these matches? Because I'm going to be honest, there's really no point for Jada Parker and Lola Vice to really team up. Yeah, they're getting double teamed, but they're winning the matches. It would be different if they was getting cheated constantly. That's the whole, but there's really no reason for this group to be staying, because the whole point of having a faction is to have the numbers game to be able to win matches. They're having the numbers game and still losing. So I'm not understanding this. It's just not making sense to me. And Lola Vice and Jada Parker, the whole point of this feud is for them to get built up, to get elevated, to overcome the odds. But they're not really overcoming any odds because they're already beating them. So them tag teaming, we already know they're gonna win. It would be different if Fatal Influence was winning the matches, then attacking them, and then they'll lose the tag match that's eventually going to happen with Jada Parker and Lola Vice. But it's like you're just going to have them completely swash Fatal Influence, and what does that leave Fatal Influence? It's like, I don't know. I kind of just didn't like the way this was booked. I feel like if you just made Fatal Influence win, then attack, it would add more story. But also, I don't feel like Lola Vice and Jada Parker should be baby faces anyway. They should be heels. But I'm not the one booking. I'm gonna give it some more time. But I didn't like that. Now we get to the main event. Trick Williams, Ethan Page. They're in their second contract signing. Tyrese Halliburton was the one that was out there instead of Ava. I forgot the reason was basically she needed someone to make sure that they get it signed. And Tyrese Halliburton ends up being the person. I know the reason why, because Dr. Stone ended up lying to Ava about them being best friends or whatever. It's a whole thing, but Tyrese Halliburton ends up getting both of them to sign the contract. And then CM Punk ends up coming out. He comes out and he basically finally gets to announce what was the big announcement. And the big announcement is basically he is going to be the special guest referee for the match. And then after he ends up announcing that, he ends up giving them both permission to end up brawling, which I thought was hilarious. And then they brawl, and that's the end of NXT. This is great. This was an amazing show. Well, not amazing. This was an overall decent show, I'll say. I wouldn't say amazing. It was a decent show. This was basically to build up. This was a slow build up to when they move over to CW. That CW show is going to be amazing on October 1st. That they're really stacking that card. That match, those shows, that show, the matches on that card is going to be amazing. But this is overall solid show overall. You guys let me know your opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.